morning.
Welcome. Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see you. This beautiful Sunday morning we have. We come to this place to make real and a powerful connection with each other. This means we have to take a moment to disconnect from our electronic devices. If you've brought your cell phone here with you, please take a moment to turn it off. Not coming through? Okay. Is this better? Yes. So, also, if you come up to either of these two microphones, please note that you will be broadcast to YouTube, where you will remain indefinitely. If you'd rather not have that happen, please refrain. And now Janine will lead us in a song called "The Tide is Rising."
Good morning. I'm Mike Wilson. This is Coleman Odgers, my grandson. And we're doing the chalice sliding with a quote from Albert Schweitzer. At times of our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flames within us before.
Good morning. Okay, children, would you like to come up and join me up here? It's good to see you. Thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And children, just remember to put the crayons and the folders back before we leave. Okay, thank you. And you can bring all your pictures with you. Our story for all ages today is called Zen Shorts by John J. Muth. I'm actually not going to read the entire story. Within this book, there are 3 stories and one overarching story. So I'll start with the very first overarching story and go into the first story. And I might read the other ones another time. Michael, there's a bear outside, said Carl. A what? Called Michael. A bear. He's really big, and he's in the backyard. What's he doing? Michael asked. He's sitting. He has an umbrella, said Carl. An umbrella. By the time the boys got outside, their sister, Addie, was already talking with him. Addie? There's another Addie. That's right. I'm sorry for arriving unannounced, said the bear. The wind carried my umbrella all the way from my backyard to your backyard. I thought I would retrieve it before it became a nuisance. He spoke with a slight panda accent. Michael introduced himself. Then Addie introduced Carl because Carl was shy around bears he didn't know. I wonder, are you shy around bears you don't know? Yeah, I'm a little shy around bears I don't know. And this is how Addie, Michael, and Carl met Stillwater. The next day, Addie went to have tea with Stillwater. Hello, Addie said as she stepped inside. Come in, a faraway voice called. Then she heard the voice say, oh, yes, come out. Stillwater was in the backyard. He was in a tent. This is a birthday present for my Uncle Rye, Stillwater said. He always gives presents on his birthday to celebrate the day he was born. I like it so much that I'm not staying in my house right now. Stillwater invited Addie to sit with him. You brought me some cake, said Stillwater. That was very nice of you. Is it your birthday? He asked. No, Addie said. It's not mine either, said Stillwater. But let me give you a gift for my uncle's birthday. I will tell you a story. Uncle Rye and the Moon. Are you ready? Okay. My Uncle Rye lived alone in a small house up in the hills. He didn't own many things. He lived a simple life. One evening he discovered he had a visitor. A robber had broken into the house and was rummaging through my uncle's few belongings. The robber didn't notice Uncle Rye, and when my uncle said, "Hello," the robber was so startled he almost fell down. My uncle smiled at the robber and shook his hand. "Welcome, welcome. How nice of you to visit." The robber opened his mouth to speak, but he couldn't think of anything to say. Because Rye never lets anyone leave empty-handed, he looked around the tiny hut for a gift for the robber. But there was nothing to give. The robber began to back toward the door. He wanted to leave. At last, Uncle Rye knew what to do. He took off his only robe, which was old and tattered. "Here," he said, "please take this." The robber thought my uncle was crazy. He took the robe, dashed out the door, and escaped into the night. My uncle sat and looked at the moon, its silvery light spilling over the mountains, making all things quietly beautiful. "Poor man," lamented my uncle. "All I had to give him was my tattered robe. If only I could have given him this wonderful moon." "Your uncle sounds nice," said Addie. "I don't think I could have given away my only robe." "I know how that is," said Stillwater, "but there's always the moon." "That was a good story," said Addie. "Thank you," said Stillwater, "and this is good cake." "Thanks," said Addie. "I made it myself." And now, friends, it is time to go to our classes. Let's see.
I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I've been given a couple of announcements, but first we'll have the joys and concerns. So if you have joys or concerns, please come up to the mic and let us hear it.
I'm Dennis Bosley. I just want to draw your attention to Sergeant Matt Rose, who was quoted in a front page article in the Capitol Journal today about a hearing that occurred last Thursday in the legislature about homelessness. And I would suggest that any worthwhile initiative on dealing with homelessness begins with his words and his observations. And he's our homeless outreach team officer in our crisis intervention team program.
Hi, I'm Remington. I haven't been here in the past few weeks because my grandfather recently passed away from his pancreatic cancer. His memorial was yesterday, and we're all still kind of learning how to set in this new reality of the world that we're in, but any thoughts of him are very appreciated. He really loved hot rod cars and Mr. Bill. If you don't know who that is, it's this thing that I got in his honor. So, but yeah, thank you very much.
The announcements I've been given.
as many of you know Estella, she just celebrated her 14th birthday. So just thought I'd let you guys know.
Thank you, Micah. All right, 2 announcements. We are requesting nominations from the UUFT congregation for individuals and families to be recipients for this year's Adopt a Family project. We will need these nominations this week to proceed with planning. We will once again be setting up a tree with tags for gift contributions to fulfill recipients' wish lists. We will be planning a wrap party for the congregation to celebrate this season of generosity and to prepare the gifts for distribution. We are asking the board to designate the collection on December 3rd for Adopt a Family. The funds from the designated collection will pay for gift cards that enable recipients to purchase food for their holiday meal. Adopt a Family has traditionally been well supported by our congregation. We hope UUFT can be generous this year. I should have noted that Bobby Schaefer gave me this announcement. The second announcement I have is about our Thanksgiving Day celebration a week from today, the 19th. There is a sign-up sheet that's going around, so please take some time for that, and so please come and be with us a week from now. Now we begin our offertory with our 402 from our gray hymnal, From You I Receive, to You I Give. You I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Thank you so much. I'm sure that many of you have heard the story of the loaves and fishes, part of the narrative from the Sermon on the Mount, as told by the Gospel of Matthew. As you may remember, the masses who attended the sermon were hungry, and Jesus sought to deliver to their physical needs. Matthew's story is that Jesus gave pieces of the loaves and fishes to his disciples, and miraculously the food multiplied to satisfy the thousands who attended. This, to me, seems to be a story of Jesus' divinity. Some of you may also recall a message that Reverend Lisa Schwartz gave to our congregation a number of years back. Her message was about generosity, the theme we are exploring this month. By the way, Reverend Lisa most generously gave me permission to reuse her message. Often I recall that message and want to share it with you today. Now, generosity is all about having a kind heart. Generosity is also about willingness. From what I've come to believe, Jesus did indeed have a kind heart and willingness. Many of us have a kind heart and in fact share our abundance with our fellow beings. We have a blessing box that volunteers and donors contribute to help the hungry in our community. We have numerous UUFT donors who help with their pledges to keep our lights on and a good roof over our heads. We have lunches on 4 Sundays, and we have opportunities to help with harvesters' food donations. Many in our congregation help deliver and reach out to those with illnesses and family needs to help with pastoral care. These acts are born from a generous spirit, a kindly heart, and the willingness which it strives to help the fellow beings in our community. Reverend Lisa's message of the loaves and fishes and generosity offered to me an alternate view of the miracle, in that those who came to hear Jesus deliver the Sermon on the Mount also brought loaves and fishes with them. Those attending knew they would need nourishment. It seems to me that many do indeed have a kind heart, but also have a reluctance to share with their fellow human beings. Some hold their abundance close to protect themselves from being without. Sharing is part of human nature, but so is reluctance, a duality. Which is stronger, sharing or the reluctance to share? The alternative view that Reverend Lisa offered of the miracle is that Jesus gave to the masses the ability to share the loaves and fishes they brought with them to others in need. The masses received a spirit of generosity, which enabled their fellow beings to receive the physical nourishment they needed.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about radical tzedakah. Tsidakah is the act of doing something considered good, as described in Judaism. The Judeo-Christian values that predominate this country lend themselves to a common understanding of this concept, requiring us to help those in need, because in a world where opportunity is lopsided towards the privileged, we have a disproportionate number of people who, whether by the color of their skin or the name they use to label the divine, or their orientation, or the circumstances that they don't have any control over, they don't have everything they need or want. These people need our collective help to become everything they can be, and any assistance given is tzedakah. Radical tzedakah, on the other hand, is an action that is self-sacrificial. It is more than just a good deed. It is a choice to live in a way that makes the world a better place. It is not something to do lightly. It requires discipline and commitment and an understanding of ethical principles. It requires bravery and conviction to stand up for what is right in a radical way, even if it means your life or freedom. President Kennedy may have said it best: ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Inject community for country, and you have a think globally, act locally Tsidakah concept. It's easy to point out who has been successful in the practice of radical tzedakah. Names like Nelson Mandela or the Dalai Lama, who simply, based on their moral convictions, have made the world a better place. Case of Nelson Mandela, he went to jail for 30 years because he knew that apartheid was wrong. Or Oskar Schindler, who saved hundreds of Jews during World War II by creating and taking a personal risk by employing these Jews to make faulty munitions for the Nazis. Or Mother Teresa, who, through her charitable work in Bangladesh's poorest communities, was able to comfort and feed countless suffering people. Or Greta Thunberg, who at 17 has acted as the voice of her generation, taking to task the immoral actions of the world's governments and corporations who were responsible for global warming and pollution. Or Malala Yousafzai, who was critically wounded simply because she spoke out in favor of education for girls in Pakistan, but did not stop and continues to speak out to this day. Finally, it's hard to forget Martin Luther King, who inspired a generation of African Americans and UUs and many other liberal-minded folks to self-sacrifice in the service of equality in this country, and gave his life for his beliefs. But not all of those who have been successful are known, and most who are not successful are nameless. A long time ago, when I was younger, I worked at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. I had the privilege to collaborate with clinicians, physicians, physical therapists, surgeons, and nurses who spent their lives working to improve the health of children. Some of them spent their whole lives working with the most fragile children you can imagine. One such co-worker, back then, who comes to mind, worked at Children's for 43 years before retiring. The day after she retired, she came back to Children's Hospital Los Angeles as a volunteer because healing children was her calling. Nothing else mattered to her. That is radical Tsidakah. So what does radical Tsidakah have to do with us here and now? Is there a cause that we all share that could allow us to rise to the challenge? Unfortunately, there are too many, all of which are legitimate and all of which are worth our efforts, time, attention, and resources. For example, the disparity between the rich and poor is a very immediate here and in the Bay Area, San Francisco. Literally, it's under siege due to the price of homes versus the number of homeless. Finding a method to address the problem could be the subject of countless speeches and reflections because the problem is so difficult to solve. Topeka is starting to feel the same kind of desperation as those afflicted with homelessness arise all over the country. Here, a recent estimate was that we only have 400 homeless. But it's harder to be homeless here because of the hot summers and cold winters and lack of consistent resources, such as beds and shelters and public transportation that runs at all hours, not to mention food insecurity. But there is hope and there is opportunity to perform or live radical Tsidakah, even with insurmountable problems. About 2 years ago, I visited a friend on a quick stopover in Los Angeles. He was busy But I was able to ride along with him as he acted on his own beliefs, ferrying food from various restaurants around Southern California to neighboring homeless shelters a few miles away, so that dinner could be given out to hundreds or so individuals who were living there. Although his personal time and resources were used during that act of giving, he did it with a smile. I'm truly honored that I was able to bear witness to his community service and to be grateful to be able to break bread with him again after so long a time. The food he shared was ennobled by my friend's efforts, and in conjunction with the efforts of the spiritual community to which he serves. Personally, I'm in awe of my friend's ability to resist the temptation of eating all that food donated by the restaurants for the food insecure, because it all smelled incredibly good. But he did pretty well, and maybe one day I will too be able to perform radical tzedakah in a way that he seemed to do very gracefully. Recently, I was listening to a public radio about a startup business in Sweden called Too Good To Go. They set up an Uber-like food service which allowed businesses to reduce food waste while giving the food to the food insecure at a lower price. The way they did this was that they contacted all of these different restaurants and food sources and made them a deal. They said, we'll take everything you have at the end of the day. Anything you have left that you would have thrown out, we'll take. And they made an arrangement where they had folks that downloaded the app that would buy by the pound or by the ounce, whatever the case may be, the amount of food that they wanted to buy. The key here is that they didn't get to select what they had, because the folks that had all of this food waste at the end of the night wouldn't necessarily be able to tell you what it is they were going to have left over. So they got it at a reduced price. The food waste was reduced, and it was a win-win situation. They hope eventually to bring this app and everything else to the country here in the US. So it doesn't solve the food insecurity problem, but it helps. So it's an opportunity to perform radical tzedakah in that way. While food insecurity is a local or regional problem, it does require creativity. And so what does radical tzedakah look like in the face of global problems, like global warming? Really, that requires global solutions and international cooperation. The Council of Foreign Relations states that through the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement, countries agreed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere keeps rising, heating the Earth at an alarming rate. But over 195 countries have committed to reducing the greenhouse gases. But more must be done. Here is a global opportunity to perform radical tzedakah. And I have tried to reduce my own footprint, which can be expensive, by installing solar in my home and driving a hybrid. I'd love to drive an electric car, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. That's another level of expense. So there is some sacrifice in even things that we do for ourselves. My own journey towards a life of radical tzedakah started about 40 years ago, when I decided my own personal purpose was to reduce human suffering through engineering, specifically in the field of orthopedics. And I think I've done okay over the last 40 years. But my efforts, I think, pale in comparison to every teacher that is out there, every nurse and doctor that is out there, and so many others who give of themselves without thought to their own well-being. Teachers make a fraction of what they should. And while nurses make a decent amount, they could make even more. There is an incredible number of people who spend their lives reducing human suffering, improving food insecurity, reducing global warming, or fighting homelessness. We just had a wonderful note about an officer at the beginning who is all about that. And it doesn't take much for each of us to make that decision. And it's important that we do. Radical tzedakah is a commitment to do good in a self-sacrificing way. It is a philosophy of purpose and service to those in need. Whether the need is solving local problems like homelessness or food insecurity, or social justice or global problems like global warming. There are many causes to compete with your time and energy, and it's really up to you to find the purpose and to use your gifts to give. I want to close with some words from a book called Joy of Generosity by Beth Roth. And she writes, as Gandhi said, the fragrance remains in the hand that gives the rose. I hope that each of you can find a way to practice radical tzedakah and have the courage and discipline to hit your chosen task with miraculous intent, causing good ripples in the fabric of our collective reality, which can help you to be successful. May it be so.
Thank you, Micah, for that wonderful message. We have some time for congregational dialogue. If you'd like to come to the microphone over here and voice your story, your opine about the service today, please come forward.
Is this on? Can everyone hear me? Okay. My name is Kimmy Woodworth, and I've been thinking a lot about, I guess this sort of thing, but I didn't have the word for it, especially with what's happening in Gaza. That's such a divisive issue, and so I think it's interesting to me to see now how I'm kind of taking on a radical tzedakah on social media. I don't think that people have considered that, but I'm losing a lot of connections with people I thought I really cared about because their beliefs are like not aligning with mine. And I think as we evolve into a more technological world, so do our tzedakahs and how we share our messages.
Anyone else?
Janine Selsby. This summer, I took a road trip to the East Coast, and for one of those nights, I stayed with former members here, Joanne and Phil Raudebush. And I guess what I want to say before that is, to me, the most radical thing we can give is our time. Money we tend to reserve enough, whatever we think that is for us, and then give out of what might be left. And so I do think there's such a thing as radical financial tzedakah. But getting back to Joanne is a part of an organization that she tells me Bobby has tried or is interested in getting started here or something. But it's something that just takes your time mostly. And I can't remember the name of it, it's about doing laundry for the homeless. When you think about how difficult certain things are if you don't have a home, food is one of those things, a place to sleep, but laundry. And some places they have a mobile shower place where people can come and bathe, but to have your laundry done, and this group does it with people, takes them to the laundromat, and I think the organization had funds to do the laundromat, but it's simple, but it takes time, and it takes a commitment of time over time. And that's what I think can be pretty radical about what we do, is because if we're doing it for our work, yes, you don't get paid much if you're a teacher, if you're a social worker, but you do get paid. The things that we do without getting paid are the things that I think create our stars and our crown, as some religious things would say.
I would say when you have radical tzedakah and do something, you may never know like what impact it had and what you did and how it would, go down the line to maybe it would inspire somebody else to do radical tzedakah for someone else. I mean, even when I was in the hospital recently, my group of friends just doesn't visit the hospital really, and so I had several visitors from UUFT, and sorry, I have speech problems. I kind of screamed out when the first woman got there, like, what? Ah! And I was so excited to have a visitor because I had a friend who was there a lot of the time, but it just meant so much to me, especially since I was in the rooms over the emergency room, so you have to get your hiking sticks and your skis to get to my room. And I was so touched that several people visited me, and I'm sure I wasn't entertaining to talk to because of the speech and everything, but it meant so much to me that they gave their Saturdays or the Sundays and came and talked to me, and I'm definitely I made sure to thank them, but I'm definitely gonna move it down and do that for other people, so thanks.
First of all, there is an announcement. I attempted to get into the announcements, but it didn't work. And this is from Martha Boatwright. The Topeka tenants are having a renters forum at the library at 6 p.m. on the 19th. Okay. The topic of radical Tsidakah made me think of the Luceros. I mean, people that we've known, many of us, for 40 years. And their response to climate change. They have wrapped into their lifestyle, for instance, they don't use their furnace in the winter. They heat their house using their fireplace and a blower, and they get the wood from trees that have fallen in the woods. And they were early adopters of hybrid vehicles. Linda hangs her clothes out on a line. So they just I don't think they're the only people in the fellowship that are that radical about addressing climate change, but they're the ones I know best. And I really admire them.
I found this topic kind of interesting because it was something that me and one of my friends were actually just talking about a few weeks ago. We didn't use the words radical Tsidakah, but we were kind of having a philosophical debate about is compassion without sacrifice still compassion? That if it doesn't cost you anything, what did you give? And it started because she was sick. She lives in another town, and I went out, bought the ingredients, I made soup, and I drove to her house to deliver it to her. And she was telling me, you don't have to do this. I'm like, no, I don't have to, but this is, I have to give something of myself in order to give to you. And that's we sat around and we talked about it for a little bit. Definitely an interesting topic.
Thank you all. Now we will do our closing song. Janine will lead us. There is a video, The Fire of Commitment. It's courtesy of the Foothills Unitarian Church, and it's used with permission.
Yes, and I won't be leading it because it is in the video. And the video, you'll notice that the scrolling of the words is kind of backwards. I think you'll get the hang of it pretty quick. You know this song, and the scrolling will, yeah, go ahead, get started. The scrolling will be turned. Please stand as you are able.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we
light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. That's by Elizabeth and Sally Jones. Thank you all for being here. And don't forget to sign up for the Thanksgiving lunch. I'd like to talk.
I strayed a little bit from the words that I had written originally, but I think it went okay.
Good message.